everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Bold podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I also want to thank everyone that took the time to listen and watch our first couple of episodes. I am super thankful for you guys. As I said before, doing a podcast is something that I've wanted to do for a while now. And it's brought me so much joy to record these first couple episodes with you guys. I really love the feedback and you guys sharing it with friends and family. So thank you so, so much for doing that. And I also want to tell you guys about our Substack. And if you don't know what Substack is, it's this really awesome platform where you could share, or I rather create your own newsletter. And I have a newsletter for this podcast. It's called Beyond Bold. You can find it at Kyla Bolden, so my name.substack.com. And it's going to go into more detail of the behind the scenes of the episodes, as well as a lot of the various things that I want to talk about in pop culture and in business, those topics that kind of converge with each other. However, I might not be talking about on the podcast, as well as some topics that I am talking about on the podcast. So please make sure to subscribe. It will mean so much to me, and you'll be able to hear about our episodes first if you subscribe to our Substack. So for today's episode, we are going to talk about burnout and breaking the cycle of burnout. And before we get into it completely, I want to talk a little bit about the Olympics first because it definitely relates to our topic. Plus, I'm just the biggest fan of the Olympics, so I think it's necessary to talk about. So firstly, the opening ceremony. I loved the opening ceremony. I thought it was fantastic. It was original. It was something that we'd never seen before. It showcased a lot of French culture. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Barring some parts, like obviously I'm a Christian, so I really didn't like the some of the sacrilegious imagery that was just completely unnecessary. But besides from that, I really, really loved it. I think it was doing something very different than we've seen before. I know some people hated it, which I was surprised. I thought it was kind of the best thing I've seen ever when it came to the Olympic ceremony, but I think they did something different in which I really appreciate it. And I really loved how diverse it was and how it incorporated so many different types of people from religion to races, etc., but just like all different types of people all over the world. So I really, really loved it. I thought it was super exciting and an amazing start to the Olympics. And as I said before, I'm a big, big fan of the Olympics for a couple reasons. My mother has always been a big fan of the Olympics. I come from a long line of athletes, and I think one of our favorite sports to watch during the Olympics is obviously the gymnastics, but track and field. I ran track as a kid. As a kid, I wanted to go to the Olympics. It was like one of my biggest goals. Of course, goals change, right? But I think it's just so incredible to see so many like amazing individuals who have worked so hard, have sacrificed so much for the sport that they love, and being able to have the chance to compete at the highest height they can compete at, and also have the world's eyes on you. Something that we often don't realize, and I think it relates a lot to entrepreneurship too, there are few sports that actually get the spotlight. I don't want to say that they deserve because they all deserve it, but actually get like spotlight and, the input that you put in is worth what you're getting out. For instance, basketball. Basketball players work really, really hard, obviously, but they're also paid really, really well. Really, really well. Some of them might not all agree with it, but I think having to go to practice and work that hard physically is worth like a $200 million contract. That's just in my opinion, but I would hope they would agree too. Then there's other sports like rowing, track and field. I could talk about track and field because I was a runner in which you also work really, 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 really hard. But like few individuals in track and field actually get that payout where it comes from, whether it's accolades, whether it is financial, and let's face it, we all have to eat on this earth, so financial payouts are really important. Prestige, respect. Very few athletes outside of those like big sports or those sports that I watched a lot, like basketball and tennis actually get that type of recognition. So the Olympics is an amazing time for individuals who have been working so hard and typically are so underpaid, so under supported to be able to be supported by their country, their world, and perform to the highest of their ability. So that is one of the reasons I love the Olympics so, so much. Now, I want to talk about the women's US Olympic team because I think that relates a lot to our topic today about breaking the burnout cycle. Now, if you don't know this already, the US Olympic team has actually won the all-around gold for the 2024 Olympics. I am super proud of them. I'm not American, but I think we all root for the US Olympic team because they're so cool and they work so hard, especially when it comes to everything that that organization has been through over the last several years. These girls are truly heroes. And if you remember last Olympics, Simone Biles, the GOAT, the amazing, amazing athlete, not just gymnast, athlete like we have not ever seen before, had to actually pull out of the 2021 Olympics early because she experienced the twisties and she was battling a lot of mental health issues. And then also there was Suni Lee on the team that got quite sick and didn't even know if she was actually going to be able to make it to the Olympics this year. And she came back and did amazing. The whole team did so great. And why I want to use them as an example and kind of use them to lead into our topic about burnout is when you look at all of these athletes, they are individuals who are sacrificing their time, living like a quote unquote normal life to achieve something really, really, really big. And when going to achieve something big, like whether it's a change in your career, building your own company, just designing a life that you love, there is going to be sacrifice. And we talk a lot about burnout. We talk a lot about living a balanced life. But I would argue that almost no one who is on the podium during the Olympics would describe their life as balance, equal work, equal play, equal fun, etc. No, that's just not the case. However, I would also argue that even though balance might not be completely achievable, we really do not want to be consistently burning out and crashing out. And what I mean by that is, as I said before, burnout used to be something that somebody might experience once in their life. And when I talk about burnout, I do not mean just being really exhausted after a long week. Yes, that happens quite often. For me, myself, I try to make it not happen as much as I do, but very much Friday comes, I'm tired, and I think that's normal. I'm talking about when you're so physically and mentally drained that you cannot get out of bed in the morning. You're having to call in sick from work for multiple days. You're mentally depleted, physically depleted, all of that. That shouldn't be happening multiple times a year. I don't even think it should be happening every single year, right? But we're finding, especially women in their late 20s, early 30s, and it could be because how much the world has changed recently. There's a number of reasons we're experiencing burnout at higher rates, right? And I really want to talk about ways that we could combat it while also forging ahead towards our dreams. Please don't get me wrong when I say this. Working hard and achieving really great things, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. You will be very tired at times, but I really don't believe there's any reason why any of us should be crashing out on a regular basis. And a lot of us are. Before I go into some ways that we could combat or like break this burnout cycle, I actually want to give you the definition of burnout. So, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health actually defines burnout as a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive, prolonged stress. Burnout in the course of employment can make one feel emotionally drained, unable to function in the context of work and other aspects of life. So that's what I mean by burnout. And burnout is something that I've definitely experienced as an entrepreneur. As I said, I've had this business for 8 years. I've had it since I was 20. I'm 28 now. And I think, especially as a young person, your body can go for longer. You could get less sleep, you could, not treat it well, you could not eat properly, etc. And you might not feel the immediate effects of that. But when those negative habits and neglecting your body and your mental health, etc., builds up, you will come crashing down. And I've definitely experienced burnout before. However, I've done a really good job, I would say, over these last 3 years to actually not get to that point anymore. And it's not like these last 3 years haven't been any less stressful than the previous years in my business. It's definitely, if not been more stressful, but I've been able to figure out some really, really practical ways to make sure that I don't hit burnout. And the way I look at burnout is like if you're thinking about like a chart and the burnout is the flat line at the bottom, you might be further away from it at times. You might dip back down. Like it might go like a squiggly line, kind of like how you think like a heart rate monitor would go, right? However, there's no reason why you need to hit that burnout line. There will be times where you are closer to burnout, further away from burnout. I look at it as a spectrum, but you don't want to hit burnout ever. One of the keys to actually breaking the burnout cycle, and I want to actually before I go into the practical ways, is actually recognizing what is burnout and what can be fixed by a couple nights of good sleep. Most of it could be fixed by a couple nights of good sleep. But once you've had those good sleep and you're still actually, suffering, that's when you've reached burnout. So let's actually get into some tips on how to combat burnout. So I have several here, and these are tested. These are things that I've used and that really, really work for me. They might not work for you. However, I have found them very helpful. So number one is no multitasking. So I actually read a book a while ago in 2022 called Switch on Your Brain, The Key to Peak Happiness, Thinking, and Health. And it's by somebody named Caroline Leaf, Dr. Caroline Leaf. And I found it super interesting because it talks about your subconscious mind, and it gives you all these amazing tips. But one of the things that it touched on is that multitasking is actually making you less smart. And it's something that when speaking with my friends, I've realized that we are all consistently multitasking. We're even watching TV while scrolling our phones, working while listening to a podcast, working out while listening to music. Rarely now are we doing one thing at a time. And I find that has oftentimes made me feel so tired and also have made me less efficient. For instance, if I'm working on doing some work, let's say I'm doing a presentation and I'm also listening to a podcast, I really cannot give 100% to the presentation and I cannot give 100% to the podcast. My mind is constantly going in between the two. And it's tiring, right? And you just seriously cannot do either task to the best of your ability while you're multitasking. I think also practicing not multitasking, focusing on one task at a time, actually really helps you to become a more disciplined and more focused person. And you will be surprised the amount of work that you get done. And I first realized this when reading this book, actually, and when I was trying it out and being like, okay, I'm not going to listen to music while also working. I'm not going to do two things at once, how much my brain quieted. And I also realized this when sometimes I would work in a coffee shop. I'm not in a coffee shop, I'm never listening to a podcast. I'm working. I'm typically just working. And I would get so much more done so quickly because of my single focus. And I often find because of the amount of content we consume, it makes us tired, right? The amount of thoughts and opinions and ideas that are going into our brain on a daily basis is unnecessary and it is overwhelming and it causes you not to be able to do your work to the best of the ability. So I would say first tip is no multitasking, especially during the workday. But I would also argue try to sit down and watch TV without scrolling your phone. Try to do things where you're just focusing on that one thing. And I really look at it as a mental health exercise and as a calming exercise, meditation in a lot of ways to just focus on one thing at once. You will be surprised how much more efficient you are and also how less tired you feel at the end of the day when you've done all your tasks. My next tip is having consumption blocks. And what I mean by this is similar to what I was saying in no multitasking is we have so much content that we consume on a daily basis. You're listening to a podcast. This is a podcast. You're listening to a podcast right now, or maybe you're listening to YouTube. We have TikTok, we have Reels, we have Substack, we have all of these things. Now, I am really not one of those people that are like, stop doing all of that, right? Like, I think content is great, it's share of information, we should be consuming, etc. But I would say have times of day where you consume certain types of content. So yes, I talked about no multitasking. So maybe during your lunch hour, and that's when you are listening to a podcast. For me, I know I try my hardest to not do social media during the day. So Instagram and TikTok, those are things that I only go on after work. I know during the week there's only specific TV shows I watch, and I like to like batch my TV shows all for like maybe even like a Saturday afternoon where I could just sit down and watch like The Real Housewives, Below Deck, like all of those great TV shows all, back to back. And I find that it actually gives myself something to look forward to. It stops me from just like mindlessly scrolling, knowing that okay, during the day I'm not going on Instagram. And for all of these rules or all of these tips, actually, I would say use the 80/20 rule, right? I'm never telling you not to listen to a podcast while working during work hours. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm just saying 80% of the time don't. Even let's say 70% of the time don't. You will find your productivity goes up higher. And I actually think with making taking these tips as not hard and fresh fast rules, but rather suggestions that you could try to do most of the time will actually allow you to do these a lot more sustainably. So that's just a little caveat. I'm not saying never do these things. I'm just saying do these less. Multitask less. Try not to consume every single type of content every day all at once. Try to have certain times, like as I said, for me, I don't try to do TikTok and Instagram during the workday. There is content that I do consume during my work, especially during lunch hours, and that might be a specific podcast, a specific YouTube video, etc. And then I try to like leave most of my TV to the weekend. And this is what I try to do 70 to 80% of the time, and I'm very good at it, and I find it helps me a lot. I think the times where I feel so much more exhausted is when I'm just consuming content all day, all the time. Every little break between work, I'm picking up my phone, going on TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever. That makes me really tired, and I feel like that also contributes to getting burnout. So number three, schedule your hobbies. I think this is super, super, super important. Most of us work from home, but even if we don't, it's so easy to go weeks without seeing friends. And as well as I would say, it's so easy as an adult to not have hobbies. I think hobbies are super important. I grew up doing every sport. I did ballet, I did tap, I did tennis. I still play tennis to this day very often. I ran track. I also did gymnastics at time, like at a point in my life. I did a lot. I did triathlon. I did a lot of sports. And what often happens is when you graduate university, you stop doing your hobbies, right? And I believe hobbies are one of the great joys in life, and we all need to really cherish them and build them into your schedule. And even better, build them in doing it with a friend. So for me, I know every Saturday morning I do Legree, which is a form of Pilates, with one of my best friends, Asha. And we go to Legree class is actually at 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's quite early. And then we go get bagels and smoothie afterwards. We talk for a while, then she goes to work. And then I go for a nice long walk. That's what I do almost every Saturday. Every Saturday, if not. And I find having that schedule in really helps me be able to decompress. It's a time where I'm not even thinking about work. I know I'm going to get out and do something healthy for my body. And I would also say, don't be afraid to be busy. I think oftentimes we think that burnout is caused by doing too much, but I often think burnout is actually caused by being too stressed for too long. And sometimes you could be not doing actually that much for a while and still get burnt out. And it's because you need to nourish yourself in many different ways. And part of that is doing your hobbies, doing the things you actually love, working towards something that's not so high stake, especially as an entrepreneur. I feel like my sports like tennis, running, Legree has really helped me because I do take them very seriously and I'm constantly trying to get better at them. But if I don't get my time when in a race that I enter into, if I lose a tennis match, if I'm finding a Legree class particularly hard that one time, it's not like life or death. And my business isn't life or death either, but there's more at stake, right? So working towards something that is low stakes is a really great way to alleviate stress. And I think hobbies is a great way to do that. So it's important to have hobbies, build them into your weekly schedule. And hobbies are not something that you do once a month unless they're big excursions. But I'm really actually talking about hobbies that break burnout. And I think those hobbies are ones that you do once a week or at least multiple times a week. So that is a tip that I would say. Another tip, and I think this is a really fun tip, is have a happiness menu. I switch names. Sometimes I call it happiness menu, a mental health menu, and it's basically all these things that actually make me happy and actually help me to have a good day. And it's like a list of like 50 of them, but some of them are like drink 80 ounces of water, go on a walk, read a book, meditate, watch something funny, call a friend, do my Bible study, get an ice shower, do some Wim Hof breathing, get a croissant, obviously not every day. Eat something yummy, make a cup of green tea. Like it's just a list of so many things, right? And these are things that obviously I cannot do every single day, all of them. There's like 50 of them. But whenever I'm feeling like overwhelmed at work or stressed or I'm not sure what to do, I looked at to that list and be like, okay, what are some things that I could do to kind of break me out of that cycle? And really, your emotions can often be broken by movement. Getting up and doing something, changing your state actually could change your mental state as well too. And I'm fine having that list of whenever I'm like, I'm not sure what to do, or I'm tired, or I'm feeling burnt out, etc. Just trying to incorporate as many of those things into your day will help you not get to the point of burnout because they are activities that are actually calming your spirit, calming your mind. They're taking care of your body, and they're ultimately good for you. And they are things that you should be doing every day. And it helps alleviate burnout. My fifth one is have non-negotiables. So this is hard. And like I said, I look at everything as a spectrum and trying to do things most of the time. So when I have to say non-negotiables, I really don't do anything perfect when it comes to this list, but I try to do it, as I said, 80 to 70% of the time. Some of my non-negotiables are I want to make sure that every single day I have a list of tasks that I need to do, that I'm not coming into the day or leaving the day with not knowing what comes next, right? And so that is planning. Planning for the next day is my non-negotiable. Another non-negotiable is getting outside. There's a famous quote that talks about you should never believe a negative thought you have indoors. And I really, really do live by that. And oftentimes, if you're locked up in your office or in your house for too long, you will start to have limiting thoughts. So one of my biggest things that I do every single day, and I like even when it's snowing and it's cold, is get outside, go on a walk. It really helps. It helps that I have a dog that I have to take them outside. But I really believe this is one of the biggest contributors to my happiness and mental health. And we all know hot girl walks and how popular they've become. But truly, I would say I have two types of walks I do, or rather three. One type of walk I do is I listen to a podcast or a self-help book. I find that really like a great way to get my reading or listening in rather. Another type of walk I do is more so the hot girl work focused, which is focused on walking and listening to really inspirational, uplifting music. I think that is an incredible good way to uplift your mood. And then the other type of walk I do is actually a quiet walk where I literally just go with my phone. I do put my headphones in mostly so that people don't like talk to me, but I'm not listening to anything. And I'm just walking and I'm just thinking about whatever I want to think about. Typically, I'm not thinking about work. I'm trying to think about things that I'm grateful for or just trying to be really present. And I feel like that really has contributed positively to my mental health a lot this year. Even in the winter, I really made sure that every single day I walked, I got out, I got some sunlight, and it has helped me tremendously. Just how they say you never feel worse after you do a workout, I really truly believe that for a walk. Typically, when I go on a walk, I always feel better when I come back. I'm always more clear-headed. Even mornings when I've woken up and I felt kind of sick, a lot can be fixed by getting outside. And so getting outside, being in nature, walking, even if it's just for 15 minutes, I think that is super, super important. The second to last one that I would say is doing things that actually matter. I feel like, especially as entrepreneurs, we could get bogged down in emails, we could get bogged down in all like fixing this little thing on the website or fixing this little thing when it comes to our technology. And we're not doing the big things, which for me, the big things is focusing on generating money for my company and making sure that I have a positive company culture, because those two things really are the drivers to the success of the company. So I always look at my schedule when I'm planning the week and think about what are my focus activities. And I maybe want to do a podcast that focuses more on focus work, buffer work, which is basically focus is work that's focused on money making activities. Buffer work is more like admin, etc. And so for me, I make sure that the majority of my week is actually focused on focus work. And I actually block out times in my calendar so I could see how much focus work I've done, which is I block it out in the green color, and then also how much like buffer work I've done. And one of the reasons why I think it's super important to focus on what matters is because you could be so busy doing things that actually don't move the needle forward. And that's so easy to do, especially as an entrepreneur. So my suggestion would be to plan out your week ahead and separate your task into money-making task and non-money making task, and make sure your week is filled with money-making tasks, because that's honestly why we're all out here working, in part to make money so that our businesses survive, our career survives, we're able to make the impact that we want. So that is super, super important. Lastly, I would say is, and this is the seventh tip and the last tip I have, is try to be more efficient and utilize the tech tools out there for you to be efficient. We have been given the gift of a artificial intelligence. A lot of people are scared of it. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. There are some scary aspects of it. But for the most part, it has made my life so much more efficient, and I'm able to do things so much more quickly than I used to be able to do them. I'm able to research things a lot more quickly. I'm able to get tasks done a lot more quickly, write emails more quickly, assess information more quickly, do research more quickly, um, do everything a lot more quickly. I would say if you actually take this approach and using artificial intelligence, not just in your work life, but throughout your entire life, it makes things a lot easier. I use it when it comes to my workout. I use it when I'm trying to plan out my vision board. I use it for journaling prompts. I use it to help me work through problems I'm having at work as well as personal problems, so many things. And what I love about artificial intelligence is that like things like ChatGPT and Claude really just help you get to the answer quicker, right? Rather than doing tons of different Google searches, you're able to get a set of answers a lot quickly. And of course, you have to go back and fact check it, make sure it's correct and stuff. But no longer are the days where we're, cutting through the weaves with a machete, right? With artificial intelligence, you have like a full-on plow, a full lawnmower that's really, really able to get you from point A to point B a lot quicker. So that's my suggestion, really trying to incorporate technology and especially artificial intelligence into a lot of the decision making, a lot of the work that you're doing. You're going to find that you're able to like use your time a lot more effectively. And then also because you're being more efficient, burnout will be less likely to happen. So those are my tips for avoiding burnout. Definitely try it out, guys. And also remember, you are going to feel really tired at sometimes. Like that just comes with trying to achieve anything big. When you have Olympic-sized goals, life-changing goals, it's tiring and there's going to be sacrifices, but there's really no reason why your health has to be sacrificed. We all have the tools to really live a healthy life, not necessarily a balanced life where everything is equal, but a healthy life. And these tips will really help you to not get to burnout so that you could be on the upward trajectory to achieving your goals. We really want to create a sustainable growth rather than, the high ups, the high, like down downs, going up and down, up and down. That's not sustainable. That is not fun. So definitely try these out and tell me what you think. And if you have any other suggestions, let me know because I'm always looking for new ways to avoid burnout. And as I said, I've been very successful over these last couple of years, not hitting burnout, like rock bottom burnout. But I really think we need to break that cycle of getting there because too many of us are hitting burnout multiple times a year, which is not cool. Okay, I wanted to do another section for the solo episodes, and you guys could tell me if you like this, but content that I'm loving because we all consume so much content, and like I said, it's really important to have those content blocks where you're only consuming certain types of content at certain times. However, I think content is beautiful, and we should not shy away from it. We just don't want to overconsume, right? So the first one is a book that I'm reading. So I actually read Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life I finished it last week and it is such a good book. I couldn't recommend it more to anyone. It talks a lot about like positive affirmations, positive thinking, how it can actually change your body, your health, how it can actually help you achieve your goals. So I actually loved it and it gave a lot of really practical ways. And now I'm reading The Power Within You, that's also by the same author, and I'm loving it so far. I think, and also here's a hot take when it comes to reading. I was an English major. I love to read. My mother is such a big reader, as you guys could probably imagine because I've spoken about her a couple times. I'm so close with my mom. She is such a big reader. Sometimes there's been years where she's read like over 200 books. That was more in the pandemic. Now she about every year passes 100. So she's such a big reader. She's also a quicker reader than I am, which I'm always quite jealous of because we'll be reading the same book and she'll be finished in 2 days and it'll take me 2 weeks. But I love to read. I love to read. I would argue and say if you are reading a self-help book or if you want to read a self-help book, it is okay to listen to the audiobook and still check that off as the number of books you read the year. Listening to audiobook takes time, it takes focus, but when it's a self-help book, you are reading it because you want to get the help, you know? And yes, it's fun to read, it's interesting, but like reading one of my contemporary books or my rom-coms, etc., that is a lot of fun. Reading a self-help book is interesting, it's profound. I won't say I'm having a grand old fun time, right? I want to get the information. This is important to me. So I would prefer to get the information over the course of 3 days, 4 days a week, rather over the course of 4 weeks, because some of these books could be really dense. What I actually love to do is I like to listen to get the audiobook because I can listen to it more than once. And I also like to get the physical book because then I can make notes in the margin, dog ear certain pages. If I have time, I can read along with the audiobook to make the information even set in even more. So that is my suggestion to you. Really don't feel overwhelmed by these self-help books because a lot of them are quite dense. Just get the information and do the audiobook. It's a lot easier to get the information that way. So I really suggest The Power Within You by Louise Hayes. That is an amazing book. And a podcast that I'm really loving is Rich Little Broke Girls. And the host is named Kimberly. She is big on TikTok, but she has created this really interesting community and podcast talking about women basically forging the paths that they want to in life. And in the beginning of the podcast, she talks about how this is for all her aspiring, I think like stay-at-home wives, as well as like career professionals. She does a really like cute, spunky way that she intros her podcast. And it's all about just like women designing the types of life that they want to design, which is all about what we talk about here at Beyond Bold. But I love it. She is super entertaining. She's very real. She's really honest. She has really interesting views and perspectives. She's a Black woman and she has been super successful throughout her young career. I think she's only like 26, maybe 27. And I really love her podcast and I think she'll be an awesome guest actually to have on here because I love her perspective and what she's doing. So that's a podcast that I would give a listen to. Okay, now let's get into the AMA part of the episode. So this is where you guys could write in, ask me questions. There's actually a link at the bottom of the podcast notes. It's also on YouTube where you could click it and send me a question. And you can send me a question about anything. We mostly talk about things to do with your career or your goals, personal development. So feel free to ask me any question about that. And this question is from a listener in Toronto, actually. Hey, Kyla, I'm 24 living in Toronto, and I've been seeing a lot about this soft life trend on social media. It's all about taking it easy and prioritizing comfort, which sounds amazing, but I also have big dreams I want to chase. What's your thoughts on this, and how do you balance wanting a chill lifestyle with going after my goals without feeling guilty? I love this question, and it also ties into what we're going to be talking about next week, which is a little bit about girl bossing and having balance, and, even like the term girl boss and how it's become a negative term now to some people. So I absolutely love this question, the soft life trend on social media. I think it originated from a good place. I think it was backlash from, the hard driving girl boss trend that we had and we saw all throughout the 2010s, and maybe some of the backlash from like ideas like lean in, and if you're a girl or a woman and you just work hard, you'll get to the top, and how those things didn't really take into the intersectionalities of, all of the struggles women might face based on their race, their gender, etc. when it comes to the workplace, and how working hard might not necessarily just be as linear of what you put in is what you get out, right? So I think that came from it. But if you're not familiar with like a soft life trend, it's like um, you know, getting the idea that at work you get more rewarded with more work, and that it's even like the stay-at-home girlfriend trend, not working, etc. It talks about that. And this person's 24. I would give a couple of thoughts on this. Um, and it all ties back into balance, right? I really don't think you could have like big dreams and also live a soft, quote unquote, like soft life like we're seeing it on social media. I don't think any of those incredible women who are up on the podium in the Olympics would quote having lived a soft life, right? And what I worry about like the soft life trend is that it's really important for us as women to be focused on achieving economic independence, and it's for a few reasons. Our ancestors fought so hard for us to be able to vote, for us to be able to have our own bank accounts. That's a very new thing. It hasn't like our grandparents, a lot of them weren't able to open up a bank account without having a husband. So it's really important to realize how far we've come and how important and why these things are important. Financial freedom is not really just about being able to travel whenever you want and to get every shoe you want to get, etc. Financial freedom allows you to be safe. It allows you to be able to leave a bad relationship that you're in, leave a city that you're not enjoying. It really just allows you to live a healthier life. And that's one of the reasons why we should all strive towards that. Now, when it comes to living a soft life while also going after your dreams, I would really try to eliminate that word soft life in general, because when we all think about it, life is not soft. It comes with ups and downs and trials, etc. And I would think about more from the standpoint of what we're talking about here is making sure you don't get to that point where you burn out and crash out. Working hard is important. It is fun. It builds your self-esteem. Nothing builds your self-esteem and confidence more than just keeping promises to yourself. And sometimes that's setting a goal and being like, I'm going to wake up every day and work hard at this job, work hard at this sport in order to achieve it. So my suggestion to you would be to take soft life out of the equation. Like, don't watch those videos, don't think about those tropes, but think about how can you work hard while still enjoying your life and allowing time for leisure and relaxation. And as I said before, relaxation doesn't mean rotting in bed all day on a Saturday, in which I think actually some Saturdays you should do that. There's many Saturdays where I just stay in bed, but I do find really what contributes positively to my mental health and allows me to live that like quote unquote, I don't even want to say soft life because I don't live that life, but allows me to live a balanced and happy life is actually being busy with hobbies that fill my cup. So my suggestion would be, rather than pulling back in work or not working hard, try to add more things to your life that you enjoy, and it will balance itself out, and you'll be able to work hard in your career while still having those relaxation moments. I would also say your 20s is a great time to work hard and to try new things. And if you're working hard at your job and like having a focused mind when it comes to your career, later in life, you will definitely have moments where you're able to be more leisurely. And so I would say work towards that. And you would have been thankful for the times that you worked hard during this part of your life. I hope that answered your question. Thank you so much. And guys, remember to write in. I definitely want to answer and give my opinions on the things that you guys are going through. And thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Beyond Bold. It has been so great getting to share some of my opinions. The big takeaway I would say is your hardest to not, or rather, get off that burnout cycle. It is not realistic, it is not healthy, and there's no reason why anyone should be having multiple burnouts every single year. And so some of the tips, as I said, are try not to multitask as much, have consumption blocks, times where you consume certain types of content, schedule hobbies. I think this is one of the biggest ones. Have a happiness menu where there are specific things that you do that you know make you happy, know bring you joy, that you know are healthy for you, and you do them. not all of them every day, but some of them have non-negotiables like getting outside, do stuff that actually matters. So focus on your focus task. And I'm definitely going to have a podcast about that because I think that's super helpful. And then as well as try to incorporate technology in your life that makes things more efficient, more specifically AI, because I think really if you try to incorporate artificial intelligence, even if it's just ChatGPT at first, into every single aspect of your life, personal life, what you eat, your workout plans, etc., your life will be so much more efficient. And then you have time for downtime. So thank you guys so much for listening. Please, please, please subscribe to our Substack. It's in the show notes. Please make sure to give this 5 stars and tell me what you want to hear. I really appreciate you guys listening. Next week, we have exciting guests on the podcast, the Girls from Monday Girl. We have such a great conversation about girl bossing too close to the sun, and it was really cool to hear their thoughts on it. And thank you so much for listening and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.